All right. Um, Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Garcia. I use he and his pronouns. I work at the American Friends Service Committee, and I'm going to turn it over to Liz Torres from the Community Language Cooperative to share our language justice piece.
Hi, thank you, Jordan. Good evening. My name is Liz Torres, and I am here with the Community Language Co-op. And today I'm going to be your Spanish interpreter, and I will be doing Spanish simultaneously. So if you can please speak at a conversational pace, that would be great, so that way I can provide an accurate rendition of your message. And here in a little bit, we're going to turn on interpretation, and at that time, you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen and you will be able to click it and put English or Spanish as the language of your heart. That's what we're here for. Or if you're on a tablet or on a cell phone, you can access it through the menu. That's the three little dots, the more menu. And if you have any trouble with it, just let us know in the chat. Also, the slides will be provided in English and Spanish today, and you will be able to select whatever language of your heart. At the very top, you can select the slides in English or the slides in Spanish. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Liz Torres y el día de hoy seré su intérprete y estoy aquí con la Cooperativa Comunitaria de Lenguaje. Y hoy vamos a interpretar simultáneamente para que todo el mundo tenga derecho a hablar y a ser escuchado en el idioma de su corazón. Entonces, en un momento breve vamos a encender interpretación y va a aparecer un globito en la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom y también ahí puede tener acceso a inglés o español. Si usted está en una tableta o en un teléfono celular, puede hacer clic en More o Más, que son los tres puntitos, y de ahí seleccionar inglés o español. Si usted es bilingüe, no necesita seleccionar ningún canal y para que se le haga más fácil. One thing I forgot to mention, if you are bilingual, you do not need to select the language. But we can go ahead and get it turned on.
Great. Thank you. And we'll go ahead. Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. I am excited to be able to uh, invite my friend and colleague Judith Marquez to share with us the Know Your Rights training that she has worked so hard on. And also, we will be recording this training so that we can share it with people who were not able to make it in person or virtually. And but if you all could do me the favor of introducing yourselves in the chat, just with your name, your pronoun, and something that you are interested in learning today. No promises we'll get to every single thing, but we are hopeful that we can be on the same page and share with you information that you are interested in getting. Additionally, I did share this invitation for this Know Your Rights training with the Colorado Rapid Response Network, kind of larger network, to say that oftentimes as a confirmer or a legal observer, really knowing know your rights information is really helpful when you are in the position to be confirming or verifying ICE activity out there with the network. So we are glad to have you here, and don't think I have any other announcements. But I did put something in the chat about a piece of legislation that you all might be interested in, and so I'll post that again. And I will turn it over to Judith Marquez.
Great. Hello, everyone. Just really excited to be here. My name is Judith Marquez, she, her, ella. I will actually change my name really quickly here. And so I have been working with AFSC since about mid-January to support with logistics around Know Your Rights. As you can imagine, with this new administration, there's been a lot of fear, and rightfully so. And so, there's been a lot of requests for Know Your Rights. And I was hired temporarily to support the UNAMAS leaders, AFSC leaders, to do workshops in the community. They've been great, just really powerful for impacting community people to, share know your rights information with their community. So we've had reach to, schools, interfaith communities, and just different local community groups, including dairy farmers in Wiggins, Colorado, which was, I think, really great to get community members that might be more disconnected from Denver metro activities. So today we're gonna present the Know Your Rights information that is shared in community. So I'm gonna share my slide, and we're gonna try something new. Jordan, can you try presenting the Spanish slides? We learned this cool technique where you can present multiple screens. So you should, at the top corner, see either my screen or Jordan's, and Jordan's would be in Spanish. So can someone confirm if you can see my English Know Your Rights slides?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I can see them.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Alrighty, so let's get started. So to start off, what's important to say is that I'm not an attorney, and our immigrant right leaders are not attorney either, but we are able to share this information because it's basic rights, basic constitutional rights that is public, information. And so that's what we're going to be sharing, just some basic rights on how you can interact with police and immigration in order to defend yourself or your community. And the workshop is designed to teach lessons on how to exert those constitutional rights when in contact with law enforcement or ICE. And again, at the end of the workshop, we hope that you have more tools in order to navigate situations in community, or share this information with community members that might be more directly impacted. And also, like Jordan said, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, or we get to some conversation. Please ask it. We might not be able to get to all of it depending on time. But you can always follow up with us, and we can definitely get that answered for you. And again, this is not legal advice. It is information that can be very useful in the current climate. Alrighty. So one important thing to note is the historical immigrant rights movement in Colorado that many of you have been part of. It's really important to share in community that we've been in tough situations before. Maybe it doesn't feel as tough as this one, but we have been in the mid-2000s. As folks may remember, there was a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment as well during that time. There was also anti-immigrant laws being passed. Colorado was one of the first states to pass Show Me Your Papers law, like Arizona, where the law required enforcement agencies to report anyone suspected of being undocumented to ICE. And that caused, big funnel of deportation, right, pipeline. And so now in 2025, thanks to the activism of AFSC members and CFER members and, the Colorado immigrant rights movement here, Colorado has some of the strongest laws to protect immigrants and to stop that ICE and police collaboration. And again, it has been, 15 years in the making, with a lot of advocacy, with a lot of, story sharing, with a lot of, testifying at the Capitol, like folks are doing today. So it's good to remember that although we're in a very hard climate, that our resistance and our organizing does make a difference. And with that, I want to cover really quickly some of those laws that have been implemented that are very unique to Colorado in many cases. So in Colorado, ICE cannot make arrests in or around the courthouse or when someone is on their way to or from the court. We did hear, in the last couple of weeks that ICE has been showing up around court, but because of this law, advocacy groups have been able to, speak to the city to address this, right? Because we have a law that ICE is not allowed. And of course, ICE being who they are, they've, been deceitful of going into the court, not identifying themselves as ICE to still try to get entry. But again, we have this protection here in Colorado. Also, there's a provision for officers are prohibited from sharing information with ICE. Also, you must be informed of your right to refuse an interview at ICE with ICE in a language you understand when you're in jail in custody. So again, if you are detained, one thing is that you can refuse the interview, and then two, if it's not, given in the language that you speak. Also, another law that has been passed is if you post bond for someone who is then deported, you are entitled to a full refund. Again, we saw a lot of cases. Again, we know that this is a for-profit system. There's so many ways that the system makes profit out of our pain. And so at least that is one thing that has been fought for. Another thing in Colorado is the protection against criminal extortion. So that's HB 21-1057. And it's illegal in Colorado to threaten to report someone's immigration status, to force them to give them money, to do something illegal, or to stop them from reporting a crime. And again, that's very important in a very anti-immigrant, landscape. Additional laws that protect here in Colorado around immigrant detention is police departments cannot hold someone for ICE beyond their scheduled release date. So again, if that county jail has their laws of how long they can detain someone before, perhaps the jail would hold them longer when they were collaborating so ICE could come pick them up. That cannot happen. That's against the law. Also, IGSA contracts are prohibited. These contracts allow local jails to rent beds to ICE to expand immigrant detention. And so that's no longer allowed. Also, police cannot arrest you based solely on your immigration status. That is against the law. If the police is asking, where you're from, if you have documentation here. Also, some data privacy has been one around with SB 21-131. It's that state agencies cannot share personal identification information to ICE unless ICE presents a warrant. And also state agencies cannot collect immigration status when it's required, unless it's required by state and federal law. So those are some important laws. And so we're going to get into our constitutional rights. So now that you know history and that we are able to, resist and push and organize to fight for protections, as Jordan was mentioning today, our immigrant rights coalitions are at the Capitol still testifying to, pass another policy that will protect immigrant communities. So also what's important, as we've been seeing, again, the unprecedented, collaboration and presence of ICE, it's important to know the difference between the police department, the sheriff's department, and the state patrol and ICE. So as many of you know, the police department is accountable to the local community. The sheriff department serves the county and controls the jails, and the state patrol monitors the highways. And as of 2003, ICE is the federal government that enforces immigration and customs law. Also, what's important is how to identify ICE. ICE operates under various names and can wear different uniforms, or in many cases, no uniform at all, as we've seen in Colorado many times. So it makes it difficult to identify presence. Here on the left side, you'll see ICE, and this is also police, or it could be Homeland Security Investigators, HSI, and we have been seeing that here in Colorado for the last couple of months. Or if you're closer to the border, but not exclusively, we have also heard community members report Customs and Borders Protection, CBP here. So those are some of the vests that they could wear, or as we've been commonly seeing, it's plainclothes ICE agents wearing a hat, maybe wearing a cover in their mouth and, approaching people. Also, how to identify ICE vehicles. ICE, again, utilize a range of vehicles, including both marked and unmarked units. Their fleet primarily consists of American-made vehicles like Ford. You've seen a lot of that. And this HSI tank, that is a real picture of one of the activities that happened in early in February, I believe. So a lot of these pictures are taken from what's been happening here in Colorado. But as you can tell, especially with the unmarked vehicles, it's kind of hard to see that it's ICE. You kind of recognize it when it's 5 of these Ford Explorers, congregating together. Okay, so now moving on to the Constitution, with the current state of increased enforcement on our immigrant community members. It's important to know, our Constitution, although there's just so much, being attacked currently. But with the Constitution, again, you all know that this is a founding document of the United States, and it has laws to protect the rights of people. And the rights that protect us all are called amendments. The Constitution protects everyone with or without papers, and that's very important to note. You don't have to have documentation at all. You can be undocumented, you could be any kind of status. The Constitution and the amendments protect everyone, the amendments specifically. Great. So now we're going to be focusing on 3 amendments, starting off with the 4th Amendment. And the 4th Amendment guarantees the right to not be searched, interrogated, or arrested without probable cause. It requires law enforcement to get warrants or consent before conducting a search. A search in your car, or a search on your body, or your personal belongings, or entering your home. The 5th Amendment is the right to remain silent. It guarantees the right to remain silent and the right to not testify against yourself. The 6th Amendment, the right to know the charges against you as an individual, guarantees the right to know the charges that are being placed against you, the right to a lawyer, and the right to a speedy trial. Those are the constitutional amendments that we're going to be focusing on. Also, what's important is we have these, we'll say magical phrases, but it's like defender phrases that we can use that are associated with each constitutional right. So for example, we can say, for the 5th Amendment, I have, I would like to remain silent. For the 4th Amendment, of having the right to not be searched or interrogated, we can do, I do not consent to a search. And for the 6th Amendment, am I free to leave? Like, have I done something wrong, right? To know what charges are being held against you. And if you are detained, to say, I want to speak to a lawyer. So what is probable cause? Probable cause refers to the requirement that the police need to have adequate reason to arrest someone, conduct a search, or seize property relating to an alleged crime. Police need relative evidence of a crime being committed to initiate an investigation. This requirement comes from the 4th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So the major exceptions to the probable cause requirement for any search is consent. So even, so again, that means that if you give consent to the police or ICE to search you, then they don't need probable cause, right? If you just give up that right, the police or ICE don't need probable cause to search you. So again, even if the police do not have probable cause, many searches occur when the person makes the mistake of giving consent. So, and here's a tip. If an officer is asking for consent, if they're asking, hey, can I look into your bag? It's most likely because they don't have probable cause and they don't have a warrant and they know that, and that's why they're asking. And so if they're like, hey, buddy, can I look into your, into your backpack? And you're like, yes, you just gave up, that constitutional right. And they probably don't have a probable cause and they don't have a warrant and they're just looking, for information. And so you're kind of allowing, law enforcement to dig up more information on you. Great. Any questions around what is probable cause before I continue? Okay, sounds good. So public and private spaces, as you all know, the Trump administration signed an order to remove sensitive spaces. So this conversation has been very important around what is considered a public space and what is considered a private space. Because we know that if ICE wants to come in or law enforcement wants to come into a private space, we do have constitutional protections, right? So really quickly, the difference between a public and private space. So when in public, for example, for ICE, ICE does not need a judicial signed warrant to detain someone. ICE can use an administrative warrant, but they still need probable cause to detain you. So again, ICE still needs probable cause to detain someone in public. So how can someone navigate it if, ICE approaches them like they're plainclothes ICE officers? Folks can ask, especially if they're plainclothes officers or agents, ICE agents, you can say, hi, who are you? So they have to identify themselves. From there, folks can ask, have I done something wrong? Am I free to leave? Because again, that by asking those questions, you're asking ICE to provide probable cause, right? To provide the reason why you're being detained. If they can't answer that, if they're like, well, we think that you're, undocumented, what country are you from? If they keep questioning, you have the right to remain silent, right? And you can also ask, am I free to leave? If you're told yes, you can't leave, calmly leave, walk away. It's not recommended to run from ICE because that might make it, a suspicious sign that you might be undocumented. But if you're told no, don't answer any more questions. They are looking for probable cause to arrest you. And again, it's really important, again, if anyone's approached by ICE in public to stay quiet. The Fifth Amendment is really important. As well, it's recommended that folks call the Colorado Rapid Response Hotline to report that there's an ICE activity, right? So hopefully, you have the number on speed dial, or you have a friend that can help you out with that. Jeff, you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have to show them your ID if they ask?
Yes, that's a good question. So I did look up that information specifically, and if it's local law enforcement, so if it's the Department of, sorry, if it's the Denver Police, Aurora Police, any local public officer, police officer, by law, you do have to identify yourself, after they've, given probable cause of why they're detaining you. So if the police is like, well, you're playing the music too loud in your car, and I need you to identify yourself. In that scenario, you would need to identify yourself to the police officer, and you identifying yourself only means giving your full name and your birthday. If an undocumented person doesn't have ID, again, they can only say their full name and birthday, and they can say, I don't have an ID on me. And it's not recommended for anyone to carry, fake documents. That puts you at risk. When it comes to ICE, the question is, do you have to, show identification? So do I have, uh, so I don't have lawful immigration status and ICE asks me for ID or immigration documents, do I have to provide them? The answer is no. If you don't have lawful immigration status, you can decline to show any kind of ID. But again, it's really important to not provide any false or carry any false documentation. So the difference between is that ICE, there's no law that says that you need to provide identification, but for local police, you do. So again, what's really important with an interaction with ICE in public is that your best bet is to, remain silent, to not answer the questions that ICE is asking you. And again, there's not recommended to lie either. So if they do say, for example, hey, are you Judith Marquez? And, even if that's really who you are, then you can't lie. But again, if the ICE doesn't have probable cause, if they're just on the street trying to arrest undocumented people or profiling people, the best thing is to remain silent. So now in a private space, again, we do have our constitutional law with the Fourth Amendment, and you have the right to not open the door. And then ICE and police also need a judicial warrant that allows ICE into private areas. So your home, your car, or to search you. Or they need consent. So you verbally give them permission to enter your home or to search your property. What's important with the private spaces is that because the sensitive, designated sensitive areas has been removed. So that could be, churches, hospitals, schools. It's really important for those institutions to make note of what is considered a private space. For schools, they have identified that the front door is private property. And so they've started to lock the front door. For churches, what we heard is that perhaps the interest lobby is considered a public space, but they have designated areas where it's considered private, and they have it posted like this is private area where the public is not allowed. And the same with the hospitals of like designating what are private areas. So ICE cannot walk in there because again, if they are not allowed in any private area unless they have a judicial search warrant. And we'll get more into that. And so what is a warrant? So a warrant is an official legal document issued by a court or judge that authorizes law enforcement officers to take a specific action, such as arresting someone, searching a property, or seizing evidence. What's really important to note is that ICE has administrative warrants. They are often entitled warrant for arrest of alien, and these are not judicial warrants. And we'll get into that more of you seeing that they're signed by an ICE officer and not by a judge or a magistrate. So an arrest warrant is for one person, and this is very important information. It must include the full name of the person, and it has to be correct. If there's, it's misspelled, or it has to be full name and it has to be correct. As it appears in the birth certificate. It also must include the current date, and it must be signed by a judge. And a search warrant is to search property or your car. It must include the address of the house. They want to search exactly what they're looking for. Also, what's important is like if they have a search warrant, sometimes it's only for a certain room. Like they can only search the bedroom or the kitchen, etc. So sometimes the search warrants do have a very designated specific area what they can search. It's not the whole house. And again, it has to have the current date, and it must be signed by a judge. And again, what's really important is that don't open the door. you can ask the police or ICE agents to pass the search or arrest warrant underneath the door or show it to you by the window if it doesn't fit. Or even I've heard, show it to me through the peephole. Like, what's really, really important is to not open the door unless you can really verify the information before you open the door. So here's an example of a search warrant. It explains the description of what is being searched, the address, the date, and below you'll see judge, and it's signed by a judge. And this one's an arrest warrant. Again, it has the list of charges of the arrest, the full name. This one has physical description. This one has even the date of birth and social security. And again, the date when this warrant was authorized to be to be effective. It has to be the current date, the day of the arrest, and the signature by a judge down here. And here are examples of ICE documents that are not judicial warrants. And these are not valid. If you see this, this is not valid, and you can just have the door closed and not open up. As you can see on the left side, it's a warrant for arrest of alien. It's U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And in the signature, I'm not sure if you can read, but it says signature of authorized immigration officer. There is nowhere here for a judge to sign. So this is not a valid judicial warrant. On the right side, it's also an immigration detainer. And again, it's not signed by a judge. So these are not valid. And many times this is what ICE has, and this is what ICE waves at people to intimidate them to, comply in opening the door or getting out of their car or what have you. So again, an immigration detainer, it's a notice of action. Again, it's not signed by a judge. It does not create probable cause. They are requests and they're not mandatory. And they can be refused by local government unless accompanied by a criminal warrant, and are one of the tools to link the criminal justice system to the immigration system. This is what was used back in the early 2000s that, again, created that deportation pipeline that we were able to, fight back against. So it's really good that this is not, allowed in the county jails anymore, unless they have a criminal warrant that is signed by a judge. That's the only exception. Okay, great. So now we're getting into some of the current events that are happening. So the Lakin-Riley Act was passed by Congress, and this new law mandates the federal detention of any undocumented immigrant who is charged of theft, burglary, assaulting a law enforcement officer, and any crime that causes death or serious bodily injury. This means immigrants charged with these crimes could be transferred to ICE without due process. In Colorado, we have policies that are aimed at limiting ICE cooperating despite what is happening at the federal level. But what is really problematic about the Lakin-Riley Act, as many of you know already, is that people, undocumented people that perhaps are charged for any incident, for any crime, that is simply for being charged. They can be detained and deported without due process. And that's very problematic because they might not even be found guilty of those crimes, right? They're just being charged. So they haven't even been able to go through the criminal court process to see if, in fact, they did shoplifting, or in fact, they did burglary. And so we can have also cases where, a mother perhaps maybe stole some diapers and simply is charged, and maybe that charge will be dismissed, or maybe it hasn't been tried yet, but ICE can detain that person and again, start deportation proceedings and deport them without due process.
That's terrible. That's just terrible.
It is very, and it creates kind of like it's a mandatory detention. So it requires detention without any opportunity to even request or release a bond. So that's another thing that's really problematic, is that folks will not be able to get a bond. And in practice, this means the bill would require the government to detain an undocumented mother arrested for, let's say, shoplifting, charges, without ever granting them a bond hearing for the duration of her deportation proceedings. So while they're in immigration custody, they would be denied request from bond. So they would just sit in detention center. And again, you only have to be charged of a crime. You haven't even been tried for it. So people can be sitting in immigration detention without due process, without a bond, simply for being charged of a crime. And, that removes the, innocent until proven guilty. So it's very problematic. And now another very current event thing is that the Trump administration also, at the beginning of January, did an executive order. It's one of the first anti-immigrant executive orders the Trump administration did. It was ordered undocumented immigrants to register with the U.S. government or face criminal charges, detention, or deportation. The administration published an interim final rule that will allow the process to begin effective April 11th, which is this Friday. And what are the aims of the rule? The Trump administration has made it clear that the intent of the rule is to further their agenda of mass deportation. The rule raises concerns on an immigrant's ability to obtain immigration benefits in the future and potentially impacts to criminal charges, detention, or deportations. So what this will require is, starting the 11th, is all individuals, including unaccompanied youth that are 14 and up, are required to register. Also, parents must register their children and themselves. And undocumented folks it's actually anyone without citizenship status, so anyone. They must carry proof of their registration with them. And what's important to note historically is, what other times has similar rules been imposed around having immigrants registering? And so that has happened with the Alien Registration Act of the 1940s. It was passed before the US officially entered World War II. It created a process in which all non-citizens had to register with the US government and at the local office. And during that time, I was reading that, about 3,000 people were detained that were non-citizens during that time. The goal of this legislation of the Alien Registration Act was to take an inventory of non-citizens to identify national security threats related to communism and encourage registration by campaigning non-citizens to register to get legal status. Another time that immigrants have been asked to register was the Chinese Exclusion Act that lasted during that time and ended in 1943. And it was passed in an attempt to force non-citizens of Asian descent to register within a system only for them. And most recently, after the 9/11 events, the National Security Entry-Exit Registration System, again, Bush administration was targeting non-citizens from 24 Muslim majority countries and North Korea for registration and tracking. 83,000 people were forced to register with this NESERS, and 13,000 of them were placed in deportation proceedings. The government obtained 0 terrorism-related convictions, which was the goal of the program. So again,
Wow.
historically, we see that any immigrant registration has been used during a lot of political oppression in the United States. And what we see is that, ordinary people are targeted. And, again, with the most recent events of 9/11, 13 people were placed in deportation proceedings. So what's important to note is that any person, any immigrant that has applied for any kind of benefit, if it's any kind of visa, for temporary protection status, for DACA, any kind of benefit, ICE already or immigration already has that information. So they're already in the system, right? What starting April 11th will happen is that anyone that might not be in the system already through any kind of application process is being required, to register. Again, there is a lot of risk for folks that don't have any kind of relief, any kind of application status for them, as we've seen historically with past registrations of immigrants. And so as an organization, we're telling folks that this is a very personal decision and that you should consult a lawyer to see if you voluntarily register for this program. Again, knowing the context that it hasn't ended very well for people that have registered in the system. So I covered this already around ICE in schools, around like what is a sensitive location, so we can skip this. One thing important to note, and what has been happening is this, DPS and so many other schools, districts have responded very well in creating their own safety protocol if ICE were to approach their school. This again created so much fear in community. So many parents were not taking their kids to school. A lot of kids themselves were really scared. They didn't want to attend class. So it's really great to see how teachers and administrators really stepped up to protect their students and to protect the right of students to have an education that is, again, protected by the Constitution, that all children in this country have the right to an education. So again, it's really good that that has continued. And so just really quickly, some safe zone policies for schools. You encourage schools to adopt a safe zone resolution. It prevents the collection of student immigration status, establishes clear procedures from handling ICE enforcement actions, reinforces that public schools must remain welcoming to all students, and trains all school staff on how to respond to immigrant enforcement situations. And encourage families to create an emergency plan, which includes trusted contacts for childcare, school pickups, legal aid resources, copies of important documents. Ensure students' parents have access to know your rights information, and also if someone is detained, knowing where to look for them. We'll get into that more. Great. So before we continue on to our scenarios, one thing that is really important is that if you're a U.S. citizen, again, you do have more privileges than people right now that are undocumented or that are, here waiting for an asylum case, or as you've seen, even activists that have that are legal permanent residents, right? Like that's even being attacked. But as a citizen, I think I am a citizen as well. I was born in Los Angeles, and I can disclose that. But anyhow, as a citizen with privilege, we need to ask how can we, leverage that to protect our community. And one of them is to document and record everything. Documenting and recording is a right for everyone, regardless of your status. But again, if you're a citizen, you might feel more safe to do it in case, of being arrested or something. But we all have the right to record the police and ICE by video or audio, as long as we're not interfering with them. The cases where this may not apply are inside of courts and inside of jails. So again, if you're in a safe distance where you're not interfering with what ICE or the police is doing, it's still really good to record those interactions, right? So that's a really great way to show up as an ally. When you are recording, it's important to take out your phone slowly and to show it in full view. You might even tell the law enforcement agents that you're pulling out your phone. So hopefully it's not, or they can't say it was, pulling out a weapon. And I think, again, that's also, based on kind of like how people read you, right? Like people of color might have more risk of pulling out their phone and be accused that it was a weapon, right? But we have be very careful with taking out your phone. Again, so they don't mistake it's a gun. But if you're going to record when the incident has already started, let the officials know that you're doing that and that you're going to take out your phone and that you're going to exercise your right to record. And police or ICE might not want to be recorded, and so they might say that no, you cannot record me. But know that no, yes, you, we have the right to record law enforcement and interaction, even if it's not, and they try to intimidate us to put down our phone or what have you. And sometimes you've seen police smack people's phone out of their hands. Again, that's not okay. Like, we have the right to record. Great. Any questions with that information shared right now? I can't see the chat, so if any questions were asked.
I do have a question. Early on, in the presentation, it said that ICE cannot make arrests in or around any courthouse,
Yes.
or when someone is on their way to or from court. If that does happen, how can we connect the family to get support with their loved one that has been arrested at court?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first step, I think, would be probably to reach out to a advocacy group like AFSC and CERC, because to document, that trespass of the law by ICE, it's really important to document, ICE or police not behaving within the law, so we can have that. So I think that would be the first step. And then, I think from there, honestly, I don't have the answer. And I think it's actually something that AFSC and CERC, when they, a couple of months ago, were getting calls that ICE was at the courthouse, they touched base with the city around like what they would do. So maybe we can follow up around like what has been the response from the city around like this law not being, respected or, followed. And also what's important, and we'll get into that in the scenarios, is that, we cannot control what ICE does, in regards to, are they following the law? We can't control what the police does either, in these scenarios, like if they are, following the constitutional rights of people. But what we need to do is like, exert them. So maybe in that scenario, if folks are approaching the courthouse and they are being approached by ICE, maybe they can inform, like, did you know that here in Colorado, it's unlawful to be around the courthouse? And again, what's really important too is if ICE is out around the courthouse, to remain silent, right? Is to not interact, not answer questions, so that they can't have information for them to use against you, right? Because again, they might not have probable cause. So thank you, Catherine. Yeah, it's a good question, and I can follow up with Piper and Jordan to see like how that has been managed though.
Okay.
But again, and that's actually a really good question too, around like in this organizing world and like as we pass laws, is that it's tricky. Like the protections, it's there, the tricky part is like to enforce them, right? Like how do we enforce, how do we exert our rights? So a lot of times it is documenting those abuses and reinforcing that, this is a law. So, but thank you for that. Great. So I'm actually gonna need a volunteer because Piper hasn't made it back from the Capitol, which is okay because they're doing really important work. But I'm gonna need a volunteer to help me read a script. Who would be available? I'm almost looking at you, Catherine, because I'm like, you already spoken to the space. I'm like, would you be available?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me send you the skit in the chat, and you're going to be the community member. So I will be the law enforcement.
Okay.
So what we're now going to do is we're going to get into some scenarios. What's really important about our Know Your Rights that we do at AFSC is that it's really important to practice what we've learned so we can feel it in our bodies, right? Like a lot of these interactions when you're faced with police or with ICE, you know, especially if you're undocumented, you feel a lot of fear. You can feel just completely terrorized or what have you. And so it's important for us to practice this so, you know, so we can like at least we can maybe remember that like, oh yeah, what was that? Oh yeah, I have the right to remain silent. So we can repeat those in case you have to use it. Great. Catherine, let me know when you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay, great. Let me see.
I just really quick, I noticed that Anna in the chat asked
Okay, great. Okay,
a
says Will,
question.
we can did you have access to the slideshow? Yes, I can share it. Great. Sounds good. Sounds good. Great. Thank you. And yes, we can share these slideshows with folks. Awesome. Okay, great. Catherine, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good. So the scenario is this, is that Catherine is driving to work on her usual route and stops to fill up gas. She's outside of her car when two men dressed in ordinary clothes approach her and call her name, and they begin to talk. These two people are actually immigrant agents and they have been following her. So good morning, Catherine. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Where are you going?
To my work, officer.
Do you have papers or permission to work? I am an immigration agent and I need you to answer my questions honestly, because if you lie, I can detain you and hold you for further questions. Can you see it?
Sorry, my screen is.
It's
Give me a
okay.
second. Oh,
I
I
can show.
have no license. Here's my identification from the Venezuelan consulate.
Do you have papers?
Well, I have papers to work, but they're not mine.
You're admitting to me, Catherine, that you are from another country and have no papers, but you are working with false documents?
Yes, officer, I will not lie.
I need you to come with me. I'm detaining you to get your immigration status and criminal record. Let's go. All righty. So that was one scenario. So let's see. Let's talk about it really quickly. So what did the community member do well in this scenario?
She was nice and didn't cause any issues.
Yeah, she stayed calm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, she answered truthfully.
Yes. Yes. But that answering truthfully incriminated her, right?
Yes.
She answered a lot of questions that in reality she didn't have to answer because she has the Fifth Amendment right to stay silent, right? So
Mhm.
honestly, besides her, you know, staying calm and perhaps, you know, being polite, there's nothing much else that Catherine did good. Not you, Catherine. The the you know the participant, right? Like the scenario. They answered all these questions. So what? Actually, I'm giving you all the answers. What did the community member do wrong in this scenario? You all help me out.
Answering the questions. Um, she probably should have said, I have the right to remain silent. Who are you?
Exactly.
What, am I doing anything wrong?
Catherine, you want to share too?
Yes, I should have and not disclosed that I don't have, or that my papers are not mine. Because I literally told ICE that I'm not here with legal status, and I gave them all the information that they need to arrest me.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. What's another thing that they said when they asked, like, do you have a driver's license? What did the person say?
That they don't have a driver's license, but that they have their identification card from the Venezuelan consulate.
Yeah, exactly.
So they gave too much information and details.
Exactly. Yes, so that's exactly what happened. It's just, again, by remaining silent, and I think that's actually a really good point around like, of sometimes like culturally we could say that like, oh, you want to be nice to people, or nice to officers, but no, we are here to exert our rights, right? This is not a casual encounter. These are not ordinary people that we're just meeting on the street. This can in some cases mean life or death in your community, right? For your family, depending on your situation, right? So like this is very serious. So again, we have the right to remain silent. And a question is, if an immigration agent approaches you for no reason on the street, do you have to answer their questions? What do you all think? I think, is it Shelly? Oh, I can't hear you. Maybe you're on mute. Oh, Shelly, you're on mute, I think. You need to unmute yourself. Oh.
So the person can say, I think, the person can say, I'm going to choose to use my right not to answer any questions.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good. Like I choose to remain silent. Yes. And what's important here too as well is that if folks don't speak English, again, we are training people to just simply remain silent, right? Like you don't have to try to answer the questions, even if you don't speak the language, or you can give a know your rights cards. So whatever way you communicate or not communicate at all, right? Just stay silent. Great. So now let's do the scenario one more time.
Yeah, it's not a hard thing. It's just like
So Catherine, oh, and folks, if you can go back on mute really quickly, I think I see maybe Anne and Shelly. If you can put yourself on mute.
gonna hold the expectation that this is gonna.
Oh, and Jordan, I think too. Can you put yourself? Wait, let me mute you. Never mind. I can do that. Great. All right. So, Catherine, let's do it again. It's on the second page. Okay. So it goes. Good evening, Catherine. How are you?
Excuse me, who are you?
Are you not Catherine Martinez?
Excuse me, who are you?
I'm an ICE agent and I need you to answer me these questions and to be honest, because if you lie, I will take you under custody.
Have I done something wrong?
If you can read the next part.
Oh, have your phone on hand and be ready to call Colorado Rapid Response Network if needed.
I want to know if you're Catherine Martinez and if you have immigration papers.
No, sir. If I have not done anything wrong, am I free to leave?
I just want to ask you a few questions. What's your name?
I'm not obligated to talk to you. Could you please tell me what crime I committed? Am I free to leave?
You're not free to leave. I'm an immigration agent and I need you to answer me. I suspect you're Catherine Martinez and you're here without papers.
Yes, I am Catherine Martinez. I haven't done anything wrong, sir. I think we're going to go home because we have a visitor coming. Can I go? Am I free to leave?
We're going to take you with us. Okay. So in this scenario, what did the participant do well?
Asked what they did wrong.
Yes.
And have my phone ready to call Colorado Rapid Response Network.
Yes. Yeah, you could, you know, and if anyone's like talking to ICE, like it doesn't hurt. You can get on the phone really quickly. Mhm.
And I think she was going to record the situation.
Yeah, if there's maybe like a bystander or a friend that's there with the person, yeah, that would be a good idea to record the interaction.
Should the person go ahead and get in the car?
That's a good question. Because they are already engaging with the ICE official, you know, it would be better to ask, am I free to leave? You know, and then the ICE or the officer will say, yes, you are free to leave. So in that case, it's better that you ask, am I free to leave? Am I being detained? Am I being arrested? And then if they answer, no, you're not being detained, you say, okay, thank you. I'm going to leave. And then you walk slowly to your car. But if ICE agent says, no, you know, you're being detained, then, you know, that's what you have. Thank you for the question. What are the things that did the participant do well?
Informing the agent of their rights, that they're not obligated to talk. And they're asking, what crime have I committed?
Exactly. Because, yeah, go ahead, Catherine. Yeah, and that's a great, like, what crime has, like, that's the probable cause. Like, what probable cause does ICE have of detaining you, right? It's not because you just have brown skin, right? That's racial profiling. They have to have probable cause that the person is undocumented. And how are you going to do that? You know, you need to do that by, you know, getting facts, right? Of where are you born? Do you have papers, right? If people then respond to that and don't use their Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, then they will have probable cause. And again, we know that ICE is deceitful and they use a lot of intimidation tactics, or just, you know, tricky things. But again, the best thing we could do is stay silent. I think in this scenario, what I also like is that when ICE approached them, they were, you know, plain clothes, office, you know, plain clothes. They were not wearing like a ICE uniform. The participant, you know, Catherine asked, who are you? Right? It's like, you are plain clothes. Like, why are you talking to me? Like, who are you? Right? So I think that's a very important question too. Yeah, it's okay. I think those are good. Yeah, okay. And then also, why in the end did the ICE agents take Catherine, unfortunately?
They didn't really have a right to.
Well, in this scenario, they did ask, are you Catherine Martinez? You know, and and again, in our training, you know, we tell people it's important not to lie to, you know, to any law enforcement, because that if you lie, that might get you in trouble further, right? They could maybe charge you with further things. So unfortunately, in this scenario, like perhaps still did have that person's name, and you know the person didn't lie, and then they were taken. So in this scenario again, it's it's, even though the person did everything that we've trained them to do, right? Am I free to leave? Can you please tell me what crime I've committed? Who are you? I have the right to remain silent, even though that community member did everything to protect their rights. Again, we can't control what ICE and immigration will do. Sorry, ICE or police may do, right? In this scenario, maybe they did have more information and the person unfortunately chose not to, like, had to respond affirmatively, right? But there will be other cases as well where, like, for example, ICE barges through the door, right? They don't have a search warrant and they still barge through the door. Or ICE doesn't have a search warrant for your car. And we've seen that where people are inside their car, they're asking for a search warrant or an arrest warrant. And what they do is they bust the doors, the windows of the car and take the person, right? So again,
That's kidnapping.
and so what's important is that we still, even though ICE might behave deceitful or abuse of power, we still might have to exert our constitutional rights. So if in case you are being searched unlawfully, you can say, I do not consent to the search. And just keep repeating that, I do not consent to the search. Because maybe that can be used in your benefit, if you have an attorney or in court, right? That some of the procedural things that ICE has to do were not followed, right? So it's important to, again, exert your rights because you never know where it may help you. And what's really important right now is that, if people have not taken this training, average day people might not know their rights. And so it's so important for folks to at least minimally know what we're training. Any questions? Go ahead, Catherine.
I do. So in this scenario, I was stopped in public and they're asking me my name. I'm asking them who they are.
Yes.
And then I asked, have I done something wrong? At that point, like, I've already acknowledged who I am. So if I'm stopped in public, they need probable cause. So then can I just choose to remain silent?
Again, kind of what I shared. Oh, sorry. Did I remove the presentation? One second.
Hey Judith, I popped in for Jordan.
Oh,
And
great, you're here.
so then I started sharing the screen because I thought that's what he was doing. This is Piper. Hi, everybody.
Oh, hi, Piper.
Do you want me to advance the slide for you?
Oh, it's okay. I'm doing the English one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll stop sharing.
yeah. Okay, sounds good. No worries. Yeah, with Catherine's question again, like if you're being approached by ICE, and now that Piper's here, maybe she can back me up on this. Again, we're not advising people to lie, right, to ICE. If they have information on you, again, you can stay silent, but again, if they find out that it's you, they might use that against you. If you're like, oh, well, why didn't you identify yourself? We knew it was you. But I don't know, Piper, do you? Yeah, go ahead, Piper.
Yeah, I think Catherine's question is a good one. So if it, like our natural instinct as human beings is like, if you walk up to me and you go, are you Jen Piper? I go, yeah, I'm me. Who are you? So the hard thing that we're trying to say is you don't have to identify yourself until they tell you why they're detaining you. So, and I have been in a round of back and forth with police and ICE about this my own self, and it's kind of a ridiculous circle until they finally tell you why they're detaining you or they let you go. So we kind of recommend that over just clamming up. A little bit more just saying like, hey, okay, well, who are you? Why are you questioning me? Or if they don't say I'm law enforcement, you have to stop. You could just keep walking. If you don't know the person, just keep walking. But again, as a human instinct, that's really hard to do. if someone's like, hey, like we've had members who ICE agents walked up to with their hand out like they knew them, and they were like, hey, Arturo Hernandez, and the guy's like, hi, yeah, that's me. Do I know you? Because and they're not in uniform, right? So if you do say who you are and they have a warrant, or they've decided that they have proof that you're undocumented, we want you to use all your other rights so they don't get any other information out of you. So an immigration attorney has a better chance of helping you win your case, and you still have options, But yeah, it's a really good question. Like, you don't have to admit who you are, but it's a little bit, we felt like maybe it's better to have a skit that's realistic where you do.
I mean,
Because
just like if
it's like so hard to not, right? And we don't want people to feel like, oh, I've now screwed everything up because I said, yeah, that's me, So
yeah, I was just asking because I'm thinking like, okay, well, if some random person comes up to me and they're asking me who they are or who I am, I'm asking them to identify themselves. And you're still asking me questions. What is the probable cause of why you're even asking me this information?
and
Therefore, do I
yeah.
need to even respond because you're some random human? Like,
No, usually if you just keep walking, or if you like ignore their questions, then they tell you who they are, right? Because they want you to stop. They're like, well, I'm an ICE agent and I am detaining you, so you have to stop and talk to me. You know, like the police are not going to be like, oh, well, she kept walking, but at least you know who they are. You know if they're DPD or ICE, because, now they have to say who they are to have authority over you, basically. But
thank
again,
you.
that's a high bar. It's a hard thing to do.
Thank you, Catherine. That's a great question. Thank you, Piper, for clarifying. That's like super powerful. And again, I think just to reemphasize what Piper was saying was that what's important about these trainings too is that, we're sharing this material, we're sharing our rights, but like I mentioned before, like you might do everything that we've trained you and you still might get detained. And it's important to like, for our immigrant community, it's like to like not blame themselves if something goes awry, right? Like these are like our immigrant community members are the ones being targeted. Like there's a whole system of oppression that is like weighing down on them. So like again, we don't want folks to be like, oh, like I didn't say that, or again, like do your best and like practice it and keep learning. But again, these scenarios are difficult situations in the moment. But yeah, thank you, Piper. That was like a great clarification. All righty. Any other questions around the skit? I'm going to go really briefly again just to cover the lessons. So again, you don't have to, let's see. No, you just, like an officer, they must follow the Fourth Amendment and have probable cause for questioning you. Again, it doesn't mean that they won't talk to you, but you don't have to answer their question if they don't tell you why they stopped you and what crime you've committed. Again, you can use, have I done something wrong? Am I free to leave? Again, you're not required to give your name until they tell you why you're detained and what crime you're accused of. They can't question you anymore just because they think you look like an immigrant. You don't need to talk to ICE agents just because they want to talk to you. Great. Awesome. Great. So maybe since we have more time and Piper is here, Piper, do you want to do a scenario with me? Do you have a skit?
Which scenario you want to do? I do have them.
What do you think about the house?
Yeah, let me navigate back to where I had the script.
And it's scenario 3.
Scenario 3. Cool. Who do you want me to be?
ICE, please.
Oh, always. Nobody else wants to be ICE. Okay. We're gonna do the right way or that's the only
Yeah.
one there is, right?
No, there should be the wrong way. It's a scene 1.
Oh, scene 1. Got you. Okay, I'm
Sorry,
there now.
no. Scenario 1, scene 1. Yeah.
Scenario 3,
Scenario 3, scene 1. Action.
Okay, this is very funny. I'm in the Capitol, and so it's gonna like echo while I try
Oh.
to scan. But here we go.
Oh, so let me set up a scenario. So
Oh, sorry.
I
Wait,
am
sorry,
at home.
Judith. Can I
Okay,
ask a question?
go ahead.
So I see that there's three. Do I not need to be a husband or a wife? Because I see that there's two different.
Yeah, which one do you want to be, Judith? You want to be husband or wife?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
And then Catherine could be the other one. Or Catherine, do you have a preference?
I think no, I want Catherine to be the wife. I'll be the husband.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, set it up.
All right, so here goes. So Catherine and me are at home in a house party with friends, and suddenly someone knocks hard on the door. The owner of the home and his partner open the door and see two agents, two law enforcement, two ICE agents that have come to the scene. They say they are searching for Lupe Garcia and they need to look for her.
Okay.
We're the police. Open the door.
Who is it? What is it that you're looking for?
We're the police and we're looking for Lupe Garcia. Open the door.
Opens the door and leaves it wide open.
Oh,
Yes, Lupe does live here. Have we done something wrong? We're just here with some friends and a party for my niece.
Can we come in so we can chat more calmly?
No, wait at the door while I look. Police officers wait at the door and the owner's wife comes up to him.
Come on in, sir. It's very cold outside. May I offer you a cup of coffee?
Oh, why, yes, thank you. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. We are very pleased with my niece's party. Come on in. Come on in.
Whose house is this? Could I look around a little?
It's my husband's. Who went looking for Lupe? Yes, you may check around.
The
Husband comes back with Lupe. Sorry.
Here's Lupe, sir. There's no problem, right? We're just spending time with the family.
You're not here. You are not from here, are you? Where were you born?
I was born in Nayarit, Mexico.
Do you have an ID?
I only have my electoral ID from Mexico.
This house is yours, right?
Yes, sir.
Look, sir, we come because we have a warrant against Lupe Garcia for violating an order to appear in court. You just admitted you don't have papers, and I'm going to have to take you with us as well to check your record. Please put your hands behind your back.
Okay. So, first question, what did the community members do well in this scenario?
The husband asked them to wait outside.
they were all calm.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Cassandra.
Everyone remained calm.
Yeah. Yep. I think maybe the other one was like, they did ask, have we done anything wrong? But it was already too late.
Mm-hmm.
It was, yeah. Oh, actually, no, it was like, sir, there's no problem, right? So actually, never mind. They didn't even ask, like, have I done something wrong? Never mind. Okay. Yeah, so not a lot was done well besides, again, saying wait at the door and maybe staying calm. So let's try this scenario again. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. What did the community members do wrong in this scenario? There's a
Well,
lot
they
that
opened the
went wrong.
door.
Offered him coffee.
And they kept talking to
Went to
answering
get
questions.
went to get Lupe.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And the husband admitted that they only have their electoral ID from Mexico
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
admitted where they were born.
Yeah. Yep. Can divulge in a lot of information.
And what about like when he asked, can we look around?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those covered a lot of what was done wrong. So let's do it again. Let's do 3, 2, 1, action.
Okay, hold up. I gotta get to that page. Okay, you ready,
Yes.
Catherine? Yeah. Okay.
We're the police. Open the door.
Who is it? What are you looking for?
We're the police and we're looking for Lupe Garcia. Open the door now.
Let's open it. I don't want to get in trouble.
Are you crazy? We must not open the door until we know what they want. Who is it? What do you want?
We're looking for Lupe Garcia for violating an order to appear in court. We have an arrest warrant. Open the door now.
Let's open the door so they can show us the warrant.
No, man. Let's ask that they can pass it under the door. Please pass the warrant under the door so that we can check and see if the person you're looking for is here in the house.
We have an order. We're passing it now, but we're going to come in and search the house.
No, sir, I do not consent to a search of the house. To my husband, check and see if there's a sign. It is signed by a judge, has Lupe's full name and today's date.
He does have a warrant.
Yells at the door. Yes, Lupe's here. Wait, I'll tell Lupe to come.
You better get her soon.
Lupe, it is very important that you go out and turn yourself in so as not to put us all at risk. When you leave, be sure to cover the entry and close the door securely behind you. Lo siento mucho, but thank you. Okay, that's end of scene. Alrighty. So what did the community members do well in this scenario?
They didn't let him in.
And
They,
what did, go ahead, Anne.
they asked if they had a warrant, and then when they said they did, then they said to pass the warrant under the door.
Yes.
And then,
oh, go ahead.
the wife checked to see if it was signed by a judge, and it has Lupe's full name and the date, like today's date.
Yes.
Also, they didn't allow ICE to go in. They had Lupe go out.
Yes. Yeah. Great. I think that, go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, a question. So if the warrant was for April 7th, then it couldn't be used?
That's right. It has to be
Wow, I didn't realize
the,
it. Yeah.
the current date in order for them to make the arrest on that day. Mhm.
I didn't
That's a
Or
good question.
very rarely it'll have like a date range on it, but like the date needs to be valid for the date they're doing it.
Right.
So once they have established that they have a warrant and it's signed by a judge and it's got the right information on it, then the person has to surrender?
Yes, because by this time it is a judicial warrant signed by a judge. So that is a valid arrest warrant. And yeah, go ahead, Pepper.
What do you guys think the risk would be if they didn't confirm Lupe was there? Or they said Lupe was there, but Lupe wouldn't go out.
Well, they're interfering with the police process.
Yeah, they could get charged for obstruction or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, if if you're lying, if you say they're not there and then they break down the door and they find Lupe, is a judge going to be mad at ICE for breaking the door?
Uh-uh.
No, because they're just going to say they have probable cause to believe Lupe was inside.
What if Lupe goes out the back door?
You mean without ICE knowing that they're going out the back door?
Yeah.
I think in real life, they've probably followed Lupe to this party. And so, they believe Lupe's inside. And even if Lupe sneaks out, they're probably still going to break the door. And do the other people in the house have papers? We know from the bad example that they don't, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then you got mad ICE agents running around your house questioning people. So, I mean, those are all possibilities that people could evaluate, but you're kind of asking Lupe to take one for the team so nobody else ends up getting caught in this web that they're casting. Which is
Yeah.
a real thing that we've seen on people do on the Rapid Response Network, decide to go out so that the rest of their family isn't made vulnerable. But it's not an easy thing.
Yeah. But also, on the positive note, I am a volunteer dispatcher on the Colorado Rapid Response Hotline, and there have been several cases where ICE was knocking at the door, and they called the Rapid Response Hotline, and again, they were asking for warrants, and ICE did not have a warrant. They stayed there for 2 hours knocking and trying to get them to come out, and eventually ICE left because they did not have a warrant. And so again, also there are many scenarios like that as well where ICE didn't have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, and they were just trying to get access. So hopefully folks don't have to encounter that scenario. But yeah, unfortunately, there are scenarios like Piper was saying of they do have a judicial warrant, and the family will have to make that decision of will they put other people in the room that might be undocumented at risk, or will the person leave, again closing the door and making sure everyone's inside until ICE leaves. Great. So let's again, I think we covered a lot of what they did right. So again, just to review, kind of the lessons learned is that keep your door closed, ask for a judicial warrant to be shown some way underneath the door, through a window, through people, verify that it has the person's information correctly with the correct date, signed by a judge. Let's see what else. Yeah, and again, in case, don't allow them to search your house. Come in to search my house. No, you don't have a search warrant. Because do you have an arrest warrant or do you have a search warrant? Give me one or the other, right? So don't let them come into your house and search any room unless they, show you a search warrant. And then again, if the person is there, it will be up to the family. If they have a judicial arrest warrant by a judge, signed by a judge, that the family will have to decide, how that person navigates that situation. Alrighty, Piper, any other lessons that you want to highlight for this scenario? Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you for practicing those with us. We'll continue on to the slide. So unfortunately, again, although folks might exert their rights and do everything right, people might still be detained. There's a lot of scenarios of how people are being detained. So So again, if you are detained by ICE, there's still hope. Every person has the right to due process guaranteed under the Sixth Amendment right. And again, I know that's being challenged in many different ways, but again, it's really important to find a lawyer and the proper legal representation. The chances of avoiding deportation grow exponentially if you have a lawyer, especially a good lawyer. So there are many forms of immigration relief for which you may be applicable for, including forms of relief that are not even available until you're put into removal proceedings. So again, it's really important. Again, I think what I'm witnessing in this current state is like, fight so you can buy yourself time, to see if there's like, some kind of relief. And unfortunately, I know a lot of immigrants, like being detained is such a horrible experience. It deteriorates your morale, your mental health, and people might choose to leave or what have you, or they don't have a choice. So, but, I think anecdotally, what I have seen is like fight to, to keep staying here with your family. As you all know, there's Rocky Mountain Immigrant Advocacy Network, and they provide pro bono support for someone who's already in detention in Colorado. And so that's the number detainees can call or the families can call. You can visit that website. This is how folks can locate their loved one if they have been detained. There's an ICE locator. You can just search online ICE locator and this database will show up. You can search community members either by their A number, which is their alien number, or by their full name, their date of birth, and their country of birth. So those are the two options. And it may take 2 to 3 days before the information is updated. So sometimes if they just been detained, they might not show up. And you can call like the Geo Detention Center, the Immigrant Detention Center, to see if they're there. They might give you that information. So, but this is one database that is available to anyone. You can just search it online. And again, like I mentioned several times, we cannot control the behavior of the police or ICE, but in exercising our rights, you can protect yourself if rights are violated. The law is a tool. If you don't use it, it will not do you any good. We have to exercise our rights to defend our community. And again, these are hard fought rights. A lot of these protections, like they've taken decades. So we must exert them everywhere we can because, that's what we fought so hard to do and to protect. And again, if folks do see any kind of ICE activity or you suspect that it's ICE activity, please call the hotline. It's, been ramped up. So many incredible volunteers. Confirmers are being trained all over the state in areas that are more rural so that, again, folks, we have this resource, right? We really believe that only an organized community is a protected community, right? Like we are self-organizing. We're not waiting for these systems to protect us. They're failing us, honestly. And so we must protect ourselves. So this rapid response hotline has been a really powerful tool. Also, some additional resources. CERC has created and updated a family preparedness packet. And this is for immigrant community members that may fear being deported and to have a plan in place of, their children, important documents that are notarized. CERC is planning to have some family preparedness days in May. And I know AFSC has done some as well. I don't know if there will be some in the future, but please, ask these orgs for the next ones. They're really important. Again, anecdotally, we are seeing mothers being detained, their children being left with a babysitter, a friend, and the mothers are trying from within Geo, trying to figure this out. It's really horrific. It's so inhumane, but unfortunately it is happening. So again, families can unfortunately take this really hard task of preparing themselves if they are at risk of being detained. These are QR codes where folks can get the preparedness packet. in the guide for preparedness packet. And also, if you are part of a community group, if you want to bring this workshop to your community, you can scan this code, and someone from AFSC, either an immigrant leader that have been doing this for like going on a year, or other allies will do the presentation. So you can scan that, and we can also follow up via email for anyone that registered, or just to the listserv around this information to request to know your rights. And also, this is a QR code of donating to AFSC for the amazing work that they do every day in, advocating and empowering our immigrant and allies to resist, what is happening right now. It's just not okay. It's just unprecedented. And again, it's historically, just going to be in the history books as a really hard time in the United States. Great. Any other questions around the presentation, clarifications?
Actually had a quick question there, and I don't know if my video will, I'll try to start my video, see if it works. There I am. Hey, question about like sensitive areas. I know we talked in the presentation that, it was kind of like establishing private spaces that, this space is private. But what about like something like a church? Is the sanctuary itself considered private, or does there need to be a sign? And how do you make a church welcoming with private space? That piece is a little confusing to me.
Piper, you want to take this?
Sure. So it used to be that the federal government said, places of worship and schools, health clinics, like anywhere where people gathered very publicly, that they were not to do enforcement of any kind really there unless there was like an immediate threat, like somebody ran into a church with a gun, right? But Trump rescinded all of those policies. That doesn't mean, so like on a Sunday, if they wanted to go into the public areas of a congregation when it's open for worship, like they could potentially do that. But the rest of the week, the sanctuary is like not really that public, and usually faith communities' doors are locked. So if your doors are locked, it's not a public space at that time. A. B, there's a lot of areas of the church that are not for whoever wanders in off the street a lot of times, like offices and even like childcare areas and stuff like that. So just having a sign that says private, not open to the public, you don't have to say like, go away, or if you're law enforcement, no thank you. I mean, you could, that's kind of scary for somebody who maybe is an immigrant or a person of color. Like now you're talking about police, you're like triggering all of people's stuff about that. So it's more just putting up a sign that says private. I'll give you an example at our office. Our office is where we sit at our desk. We have a sign on the window that says private, not open to the public. Our doors are always open, but if a law enforcement person was to come in, we would just shut our office doors and they would not be allowed in those areas. So just having like a simple plan that kind of walks front office staff or volunteers through how to do the same things, right? Ask for a warrant if the church doors are locked. Even if you don't know who they are and you open the door, you let them in. The other areas are still off limits, and you can just start saying, I don't consent to a search and recording. And then today, the reason I'm at the Capitol is because we are trying to pass a state law that would include some of these more sensitive areas as protected in Colorado, and then have like some consequences for any immigration agents that would violate the state policy. They're mostly like financial, like getting sued, because we can't, that's all we can do to the federal government. But yeah, it's a really good question. And I think just wherever sensitive space you're in, remembering that the Constitution still applies. Just because it's they rescinded this policy doesn't mean that they can just go wherever they want, whenever they want. Sensitive or not, the Constitution still applies. It was meant to make people afraid. And To be honest, I think it has made some faith communities a little bit nervous, ally communities, about, hosting workshops and stuff, because they're not clear what this policy means and they don't want to get in trouble. But I think we're slowly eating away at that. But the more you all can share back with your faith communities, no, it still applies. Constitution still applies. So,
Thanks, Jen.
hi,
And
Carrie.
go ahead.
I just had a question about the Know Your Rights cards. How can I get some?
Yeah, actually, if you email me, I can definitely coordinate with you to pick some up. Yeah, it would be great. We have two different cards. We have ones that have the rapid response hotline and some that are more general. But yeah, I'd be happy to share any that folks might want. Let me just put my email in
I
the
did it
chat.
for you.
Oh, thank you. Like, I can't remember my email, but yes, thank you. Any other questions?
Can I just add something? So CERC's website has a ton of valuable resources, know your rights cards that are even like downloadable forms, like where you can even like print them out, download them. They have also different samples of a arrest warrant, arrest warrants. I've found all of the resources there really valuable. So I do recommend everyone to just go and search through the website. And I'm sorry, I can only speak on CERT because I've gone through the website, so I know firsthand of what I have found there. But as a community member, I have found that very, very helpful in getting information to be able to educate ourselves, but also community members.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Catherine. Definitely. Awesome. Any other questions?
I just
Okay.
want to put a plug in for
Sure.
two things, if people will indulge me. One, one is if you haven't already trained as a confirmer for our rapid response network, please go check out the page. Honestly, we need folks who are free during rush hour. We're seeing a lot of activity both in the morning and in the afternoon during rush hour, when it's hard for people who are working or picking up kids to get even, non-rush hour, it's 10 minutes away. Rush hour, it's like half an hour away. And I end up, like, for example, in Golden, I just end up calling my mom, who's retired, who's never had this training, and being like, can you go drive around? Which she does, because she's awesome. But I think you don't have to be bilingual to just go figure out if it's ice or not, and then report back to the line. So that's always a good one. And then the second one, we'll send it in the email follow-up from this, but people have a lot more anxiety around going to any kind of court, like traffic court, a small criminal case, immigration court, things like that. And we have a really great training to be a court accompaniment. Also, you don't need to be bilingual. It's just like taking our citizenship. And then if we also have it, white privilege, or if we don't have either of those, like English language privilege and knowledge of how these systems work, and just hanging out with people and sort of observing what happens, maybe helping them fill out a form, or find where they can fill out a form, things like that. And we're getting a lot more requests now. So I think we'll have a training soon, but you can fill out the interest form, and then when we have a training, you'll know because we'll email you. So we'll put that in the follow-up to this training, but I just wanted to say, this, like, just being present, I can't overstate how important it is, whether it's you just seeing something happen to somebody else, you happen to be there, or going to court with somebody or responding to a text from Corn. It's really how Colorado has been able to keep the numbers lower of how many people they can take from us. So thank you all for spending all this time with us tonight and indulging me in a couple more commercials for ways to get involved. And my intention is not that all of you do all of it, but just maybe you hear something that you're like, oh, that's the one that interests me. And then you choose that one. So that's all.
Thanks, Pepper. Yeah, those are really important ways that folks can get engaged. Well, any other questions? So I'm gonna just close us off. Alrighty. So just for the folks that are here, just if you could go off camera and maybe do popcorn style. So just choose someone of like how you're feeling, just like one word. For me, I'm just yeah, I'm excited. So I'll pass it to Anne.
Well, I feel like I know a little bit more and I'm interested in doing something to help. Yeah.
And can you pass it to someone?
Oh, okay, Karen.
I just say I'm in learning mode, especially in these times where everything seems somewhat new but old as well. So just trying to learn as much as I can. And thank you for having this type of information session. And I'll pass it to Shelley. I'll pass it to Maureen.
I have laryngitis, so I'm gonna pass. I'll pass it to Catherine.
I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
I am feeling even more informed and also this type of community work and engagement fuels my work out in the community, but also on a professional level. So thank you all for creating these trainings and for all the work that you all do. And also thank you, community members, for showing up, because it takes the community to protect all of us. So thank you all. Popcorn too. I apologize. Is it Charlene? I don't know who hasn't gone. So did I?
Yeah, it is. Let me see if I can get off camera for a sec. I don't know if you could see me. So I'm oh, there I am. Hello. So I'm feeling a lot of gratitude, and I am very appreciative, and really I'm going to focus on trying to get, well, I'm going to focus on getting folks, the allies to the table. So thank you. And I will pass it to Cassandra. Did you go? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of this community. I'm glad to hopefully make a difference. You know, it takes everyone to try. So yeah, thank you everyone for, you know, being here and supporting other people. And I'll pass to who hasn't gone? Rebecca, I think.
Hi everyone. Well, so I'm in my car. Sorry. We're multitasking here, some of us, right, Piper? Anyway, sorry I got in late, but I really appreciate all these trainings. Also to see more and more faces involved on the screen, but like in the community as well. So I'm very grateful for all of you for showing up here and then the different spaces that you are. And I'm just feeling very, despite everything, hopeful. Yeah. So, and I will pass it to Liz is the interpreter, sorry. That's what I'm seeing on my screen.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
Shelly, if you can, thank you, Rebecca. Shelly, if you can come off mute, maybe just share how you're feeling, if you can. Okay, maybe Shelly can't. Well, with that, we want to thank Liz Torres from is it the Colorado Language Cooperative,
Community.
Community Language Cooperative. Thank you, Liz, for joining us. Alrighty. Well, thank you all so much again for spending this evening with us. And yeah, we'll follow up the email. Thank you, Piper, and folks. So have a good evening. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
Hey, my phone died here at the Capitol. Hold on. I think Shelly has probably exited this meeting and doesn't realize, so let me just remove them. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I asked this question earlier, and I know that you're at the Capitol. Thank
It's
you
all
so
good.
much. I wish I could be there. I'm an advocate for a human rights organization. We specialize in IDD. But I learned today that ICE cannot make arrests in or around any courthouse or when someone is on their way to or from court. I know of a specific situation where they were at court to get a mom and the daughter to get their their green card to be here. They were there. They had their appointment. They were arrested in court
Here in Denver?
here in
Okay.
Denver. And
When?
they're actually still detained, I believe. They have zero criminal record. The little girl's 6 and the mom.
The 6-year-old is still in detention?
I believe they are still both being detained. And in court, they took away their documents and they took away the mom's cell phone.
Yeah. So, do you so so two things. The detaining people at court is around municipal, county, and state courts. So ICE is not supposed to detain people on the way to our courts, at court or leaving court. They can detain people at immigration court, but it's very rare. And this is the first time I'm hearing that they detained someone in Colorado at immigration court. So this is why my face is like so concerned, other than the fact that it's horrific. Do you know when they went to court?
So I actually asked the family to contact Colorado.
Rapid response time.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if they have. With this information that I learned today, I'm going to circle back and get some additional details.
So you know them, their family.
I don't know them directly. This is one of my best friend's family member. And she knows the work that I do in all my community engagement. And so she reached out and I lost my shit. Like,
Are they, do they live in the metro area, the family, or they live far away? Do you know?
no, they live in the metro area.
So maybe the shortest route to talking with, so that I'm assuming there's like other family members besides the mom and the daughter, like a husband or a brother or.
Correct.
Okay. So, maybe if your friend feels comfortable and if the family feels comfortable, I could meet them. And if they want you there too, awesome. I could meet them somewhere with the friend there.
Okay.
First I want to make sure that we're able to orient people to like whatever we think might be happening next and kind of talk through what their family members are going to need. I'm really concerned about the 6-year-old because the detention center here is only adults. There should not be any children being held in detention here. Sadly, they've reopened a family detention center in Texas, which is still jail, but the mom and the child would be together in that jail. But they would be
Is
all the
this
way in
in
Texas.
Santa Teresa down at the border by El Paso?
No, it's I forget that it's Fort Bliss is where they're holding
El
families
Paso,
right now.
Texas. That is
Yeah,
where I am from. That is disgusting.
right.
Yes,
Yeah, it
concentration
is.
camp.
So I want to be able to find them. I want to know where the 6-year-old is. And if they have another parent here, they should have been informed and given the opportunity to collect this child. But they might not have been because, it's a dystopia right now. But I would like to sit down with them and kind of orient them to what's happening and see what they know. And then also, if they're willing, be able to document more exactly what happened at court. It sounds to me like they went to court for asylum proceedings.
Well, they were here on a visa from and like I said, I can
Yeah,
get additional
like a tourist visa.
just I don't know exactly what
Yeah,
kind of visa.
I think don't ask more questions, like because we'll just go like roundy round. But if they are able to meet or be on a phone call, if they don't want to meet in person, also fine. I'm bilingual. Spanish is my second language, but I'm pretty fluent. Um and I'm also making a big assumption that they're Spanish speaking.
Yes, they are.
Um
Correct assumption.
um but we could even do like a WhatsApp or a Signal video call. They could be in their house. You guys could jump on whatever they feel most safe about.
Okay.
And then we could have a conversation and just try to, one, get to the bottom of what happens so they know where their loved ones are. That's like priority one. Priority two is like, are there any options? Can we get them connected to any? There's not a lot of pro bono, but this to me sounds pretty egregious and maybe somebody would be motivated to represent them. And then lastly, just document exactly what happened because there's people going to court. If it was really court, there's people going to court like every single day. If if they tell you the address, I can tell you for sure where they were going and what it was for. Because a lot
Okay.
of times people confuse like check-ins or biometric appointments with court or check-ins at
Mm,
the ICE office. So before I like jumped fully to the conclusion that they were detained at court. But if you get an address from the friend, I can tell you what they were doing. Like,
okay.
um,
Perfect. And that's pretty simple,
and
actually.
I'm gonna put my cell phone here in the chat, and then I have Signal. You could reach out to me over Signal about it.
Okay.
And then we could find, if they're like, no, we don't want to meet with anyone, why are even, like we're not interested, then I can send you or you and the friend a list of questions. You could get
Okay.
information, send it back to me, and I could orient you guys
Okay.
instead. So,
Okay.
but just kind
Perfect.
of gauging, like, because like I said, I've been waiting to hear that somebody is detained at court. Like I knew it was gonna happen. Um, But if this is the first time it's happening, like I want to make sure we document it really well and we're able to see like, is there any kind of logic to why, or is it just like we needed to fill a bed or something,
History happening again, just mass roundups of people that are not white.
Oh, it's so, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, we just did, like with our members, I did 2 weeks ago, a whole with our immigrant members, the whole like primer on registration, like the registration of indigenous people, the registration of Chinese people, the registration of folks of Japanese descent, and the registration of Muslims after 9/11. And I was like, the moral of the story is it doesn't turn out well. Anytime the US government is like, just register and we'll assume you're a good person, that hasn't been the case. So
I mean, it's down to what they're asking. What's your ethnicity? What's your, like, all those things unknown, not wanting to answer. No, absolutely
thank you.
not. It is a way to gather information to be used against us. No.
Every time. Secretly, not as if as he, but I'm trying to figure out how people could like make a fake USCIS account and then register real aliens as part of this registry and maybe crash it.
Yes.
Like Superman and like Wonder Woman. I had a friend, I don't know anything about pop culture. I never have, even as a kid. But I had like my best friend help me make a list of like all the aliens in cartoons and pop culture. Because I'm like, we need to crash this ridiculous registry they want people to do on the 11th.
Goodness, yes. I love that idea. Woo. I'm about, yeah, we are pushing against the things.
And also with humor, right? Like I don't know, it's not a funny situation, but it is ridiculous. The play, like how they set up that ice tip line and then they had to take it down because everyone reported Elon Musk. I was like, that is the energy I want to invite.
Exactly.
But
perfect. I do have signal. I will connect with you on there. And I will ask to see if they'll give an address, and then we'll loop back around.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Piper. I appreciate you.
You too. Bye,
Bye-bye.
Catherine.